Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Today I'm going to do a cooking video in which I'll prepare a vegetarian pasta sauce, and you can eat it with any kind of pasta that you want to eat it with, but today I'm just going to focus on the sauce. So let's move to the kitchen. Right now I'm going to show you which ingredients you need to make this pasta sauce. In this case you need some spices and some herbs, and I'm going to use some salt and pepper and basil in this sauce. Further on you need some mushrooms, which I have right here, which I'm going to chop up in little pieces. The second thing that I'm going to be using is a pepper. It's just a small pepper, just to give you an indication of how big it is. And I'm going to use one onion, which I'm also going to chop up in just a minute. So once those vegetables are done, I'm going to add some sauce to it, which I'm going to do with water and this tomato paste, which I bought at No Frills here in Canada. And I'm going to use half a can of tomato sauce, just plain tomato sauce. I'm still in the process of learning how to make my own tomato sauce with peppers and fresh tomatoes. So once I know how to make that, I'll make another cooking video for you. You also need half a can of this. So these 2 cans you can use for approximately 2 times making pasta sauce for 2 people, I would say. Other than that, I need some olive oil. This is extra virgin 100% 500 milliliter bottle, just random olive oil. And last but not least, because it's a vegetarian pasta, I will need some tofu. So I'm going to drench this, or I'm going to put this in a sieve so that all the juices can get out of it, and then I can chop it up in blocks. That's what I'm going to start with first, because it takes a while before these are nice and crunchy. In addition to the tofu, different variation, what I would say is that you can use chicken, for example, or beef. But sometimes I just like it to make a vegetarian dish, and I really like this extra firm tofu. So that's what I'm going to be using today. So let me start off with letting this leak in the sink for a bit so that I can chop it up in blocks. So I drained the tofu, and the tools which I'm going to be using today is one large knife. You can see some fingerprints on there. Some to chop up the tofu. And then I have a small knife for the vegetables. And I'll be using one plastic spoon, which I just washed, to stir the vegetables. So I'm going to start by chopping this up in blocks. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to put this like that, like vertical, and then I'm going to cut it into 3 thick slices to start with. It might be possible that you can hear my stomach growl once in a while, since I'm filming this around dinner time and I'm actually pretty hungry. So we have 3 thick slices, and I put them back on top of each other like that. And then I just cut it like this. I washed my hands before I started cooking. And please excuse me for my cutting techniques. I'm not a chef in any kind of way, but the food always comes out good, and that's what really matters. To me at least. So let me move this like that and chop it like this so that it will become little blocks of tofu. I found this the easiest way. Obviously, if you have a different cutting technique, you can do that too. Just into however you like it, like that. And you can see that it's quite a lot of tofu, but personally, I really like tofu. So, okay, so here we have it, one big heap of tofu. And I'm going to cook these first, and after they're done, I'm going to put them in a bowl to keep them aside, because they have a different preparation time than the rest of the vegetables. That's the reason why I always cook these first. Okay, so let's move to the pan so that I can put it in there and cook it for about, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes. It needs quite a long time to get like nice and crispy. So I'm going to turn on the stove on about like in the middle between low and high. And I'm going to add some of this olive oil in the pan. I would say that that is enough. I'm going to use that for the rest of the pasta as well. You can use any amount that you would like to use or that you think would work well. So let me move this around a little bit. Just a little. And I'm going to put the tofu in the pan, and I'll be leaving it for about 15 to 20 minutes, as I just mentioned. So let me put this in. Let me stir it around like that. And now I'm going to add some pepper and salt. It's just regular table salt that I have here. I need to shake it a little bit. Always gets stuck in there. Okay, great. So this is very fine salt, so please don't freak out on the amount that I'm using. It's very fine and it's not very salty, even though it's salt. And then I have some spices, pepper, which I will be using, which you can't really see right now. Let me see if you can see that a little better. There we go. So it's just very fine pepper, which I'm going to add to the tofu. Okay, so this little bag. And I like spicy food, so I use quite a lot of pepper. Like that. And then I'm going to stir it one more time. Just to mix in the pepper and salt and the oil. Okay, so I'm just going to let this cook for about 15 to 20 minutes and then we'll continue. So once the tofu is done, it took me 15 minutes to cook. It looks like this. And now I'm going to continue with chopping up the vegetables, starting with the onion. So that's what I'm going to be using my small knife for. Let me start with cleaning this onion. Let's move that to the side a little bit. I left the stove on so that I can immediately start with cooking these vegetables. These knives are sharp. It's just my clumsy way of cutting them. So that's one. It doesn't need to be precise, especially if you're just cooking casually, like I do most of the time. So that's one part. And then the second one. First, I always cut them horizontal and then vertical. I find that the easiest way. Okay, so now that these onions are chopped into pieces, I'm going to put them in the pan straight away. Next, I'm going to cut the mushrooms. I won't be using a crazy amount of mushrooms. They're very, very small. So I think this will be about a good amount of mushrooms to use. So I always take out the stem. I always check if there is not sand or dirt left on them. Sometimes I also wash the mushrooms. I might actually do that in a sec. So let me wash these mushrooms. Now that I washed the mushrooms, I can start cutting them just in thin slices or little blocks if that's what you prefer. If they're bigger mushrooms, I cut them into blocks. If they're small mushrooms, I just cut them into slices like this. And also with this pasta, you can add any kind of vegetables that you like, since it's going to be a sauce anyways. You can also choose to blend it in a blender if that's what you prefer. Personally, I always like it to have chunks of vegetables in my sauce. That's the reason why I prepare it like this. And then the tiny little stems I always cut just in thin slices as well. Just like that. And I do that with all of them. I cut them into more slices when I have bigger mushrooms, but that's not necessary for these ones. This time the vegetable store where I always buy my vegetables didn't have big mushrooms. It's always a surprise what they have. You can hear the stove in the background. So once this is all done, you can add it to the onions in the pan. Okay, so the last thing that I need to cut is this pepper, and I always do that by cutting it in half first. It's just my way of cutting peppers, and then I open it like this, and then I take out the seeds. Like that. I washed the pepper already. And then I chop up the pepper in thin slices. One a little bit more thin than the other, but then again, I'm casually cooking. It's not a cooking competition. Like that. And then I chop them up in blocks. Might be possible that some people that are watching this video are afraid that I cut my fingers. I can tell you that rarely happens with the way how I'm cutting vegetables. I always like to cut slowly and just relax a little while doing so. And then the pepper. There's a little seed in there still. Take it out. And last one. Chop them up again in good size blocks, just like that. These 2 pieces, 3 pieces. Move it to the side so that I can do the last part. just like that. And now I can put the pan on the stove again, so that everything can cook properly and get mixed up. So let me show you that. So let me add the pepper to the rest of the vegetables. Okay. And now I'm going to add some pepper and salt and some basil. So I'm going to add some basil to it first. It's this one. Basil. Let me add that to the rest of the vegetables. I'm using quite a lot of basil because I really like basil. As you can see, like that. And now I'm going to add some pepper and salt. And some pepper. And stir the vegetables. Now I'm going to leave this cooking I'm going to leave it cook for about 15 minutes, and after that I'll be adding some water and some tomato sauce. So it's about 15 minutes later, and the vegetables are ready, so I can add the tomato sauce to it right now. That's what I'll be using, or I'm going to do, and I turned the stove on low. So that's how the vegetables look like at the moment. So let me add half a can of tomato sauce, which I had left from last time. And I'm going to put some water in it to rinse out the can. Add that to it as well. And then I have the tomato paste, and I'm going to use half of this can. About that much will be enough. And then all I need to add is my secret ingredient to make this sauce taste a little bit better, because the tomato sauce itself is pretty sour. So I always add a tiny little bit of tomato ketchup to it. So let me get that. Here I have our no-name tomato ketchup, also from the No Frills. I didn't add those labels myself. So about this much. And then we can start to mix everything together. And don't worry about it being too watery. If you do think it's too watery, you can always add some flour to it, and that will make it turn it more into a sauce if it's too watery. Sometimes I make a mistake by adding too much water, and flour is the solution to fix your mistake. So one last thing I need to be doing is to add the tofu, and then I'm ready to eat. So the tofu that we cooked earlier, just add those to the mix. Stir everything together carefully so that the sauce doesn't splash around. I'm just going to let this cook for another 3 minutes, and after that it's bon appetit. The Water Whispers